Wow. Oh, it even says it out loud.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow. It
Well,
really like interrupts the
well, I
moment.
mean, I feel like that's good. Otherwise, it's a secret thing that I'm just like
True.
recording you.
True.
I don't
That's a
know.
good point. Cool. Thanks for the consent.
Yes.
We're adults.
Very
Consenting
consensual.
adults. Amazing.
Well, today on the podcast, I have Jess Hover, and I am so excited because honestly, I've watched your YouTube videos. And so when I think I sent you an Instagram message one time and I was like, oh, that'd be cool if she messaged me back. And then you did. And I was like, oh, I'm talking to Jess Hover. Like, I
That's so
know.
nice. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
so cute.
And then when you said you'd be on the podcast, I'm talking to my intern and I'm like, yeah. It's this week. I'm so excited. This is going to be so exciting.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes, but I love it. So you are a YouTuber and you've fallen into the mommy category, which
I am.
yeah, it sounds like,
lucky me.
yeah. But what I love about you is that you're just so real about everything that you share. And the first video that I found of yours, I got this wrong in the email. What is it?
That's okay. It's called I Don't Like Being a Mom. Just like
Right.
a warm,
Right.
warm title.
But honestly, when you're like struggling and you see that title, you're like, is she going to say what I'm thinking? And then you click on it and you watch it and you're like, can she say these things?
Yeah.
But you're also so glad that you're saying these things because this is exactly how I felt. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay. So maybe I'm not crazy, or maybe the two of us are crazy and anyone else who relates.
Yeah.
But it was just refreshing. And so then I just started diving into all of your stuff and I was like, this is amazing. I just love how real and honest you are. So that's why I was excited to have you on, because you've since had 3 more children. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. It's just like the whole motherhood journey of going from 1 to 2 to 3.
Yeah. The 2 to 3 was like rapid speed surprise. Here we are. So yeah, but I'm happy to talk about any of it. And thanks. I feel the same about you. And I think your realness is what people need and crave and like long for, especially in a time where our world has so many people even more isolated than motherhood already has us. So we're forced to be home a lot more than we would even choose to be. And so then when we're on our screens looking for any sort of hope or encouragement, it's actually most encouraging to see somebody else somewhere who's like, yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try my best. And I feel like you have that. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to share it with you. Like, what do you think? Is this good? Cool. Right. Here we are. Yes. And we love that. We need that. So
it's sometimes hard. I found that like when you share those things, because then I feel like I'm just complaining a lot. Do you ever feel like that where you're like, I actually do like this most of the time, but some of the time it's really hard. And I just feel like I'm just sharing the.
Yeah, I think definitely like when I made that I don't like being a mom video, my point wasn't to make like a real Debbie Downer video that people watch and are like, oh yeah, this sucks for me too. Right. And then like womp womp. But it was more like, when I had Eloise, so that's 6 years ago, I really was looking for anybody to acknowledge how hard it was and then tell me it would be good. So I was on the internet looking for things, and all I could find was how amazing motherhood is, like how it is so important. It's so meaningful. It is so glorious. There's so much beauty in it. Like, smell your baby. And I was like, I just need someone to actually meet me first in like, this is a mess. You didn't expect it to go like this. I'm so sorry you don't feel like yourself. Me neither. And it gets way better. And in the midst of it, here's the good stuff. And so that was like more of what I'm trying to do in that particular video, but really in any content I make is like, let's call it hard because that's what it is. But then also, once you acknowledge that, there is so much goodness in it. Right. It's just that the hard stuff catches us off guard, and then we can't even find our way into the good places.
And you feel guilty for feeling that way.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. And I think there are a lot of moms who love things that I think are hard. And I think that's fine too. Like they're important. They're necessary. In fact, sometimes I need their perspective, because I need to be reminded like what is so lovely about some of the stuff that is just making me crazy. Yeah. And you just kind of find your people, like the ones that relate to you in the same way that you find real life friends, like when you're out and about. Yeah. That's what we're doing here. So, yeah.
And I feel like I've definitely taken that from you. Like I have a few friends who think it's glorious. They are just
Oh
like,
yeah.
there's nothing, they're full-time working mothers with no babysitter because they don't want someone else raising their children. And I'm like,
Right. Right.
how? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just the greatest. It's so much. And I'm like, tell me more, please just give me
Yeah.
some of that goodness. And so I've adapted that from you because I'm like, okay, you're
That's
right.
cool.
We do need that like positivity and that perspective really to be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you're right. Those are really nice
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So tell
That's
me
cool.
about pre-baby life. Cause I feel like you and Sean, your husband are,
Yeah.
I mean, was he always a professional skateboarder or like what?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. I feel like there's so many things I could tell you about pre-baby because a lot happened, but Sean's from Michigan. I'm from Colorado. We met in LA. We both moved there after high school. And Sean's been a skateboarder since he was a kid, and he's always been very good. He's also really tall, so it's like kind of unusual to see a very tall person be excellent at skateboarding. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. Things are hard for him, but they don't look like he could jump down something huge, but because he's so tall, it's not going to look as
Oh,
huge, but it's
funny.
still just as huge.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So there's just something there. But yeah, he's been a skateboarder the whole time that I've known him, and like a successful skateboarder in the world of skateboarding, which means to a skater, he's famous. To the average person, they don't know his name.
Kind of like a mom blogger.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
YouTuber.
In his own sphere of this
Yeah.
world. He is well known. And he's awesome. And we met in LA. We both worked for the same Christian-based nonprofit. So they offer these courses you can take. So we both met doing a school. It was 3 months in LA and then 3 months overseas. And so I was in Thailand and he was in Thailand and China. And it was all doing like faith-based humanitarian work. So you're like teaching English, and I was working with girls who had been taken out of prostitution. And so I was like teaching them dances and like all these different things. You're working with organizations that already exist. It was so fun. I loved it.
That sounds incredible.
It was amazing. And we met like the best people in the world doing it. So so a lot of the people that we have who are like our core friends now, all of us work together. So that was a special time of life. And it involved a lot of traveling, a lot of building like leadership skills. Through that, I worked with the fashion and entertainment industry here in Los Angeles. So I thought for a time maybe I would pursue acting or do something. I love communication, and I love the way that entertainment can impact the whole world. Like when you I would be like in jungles in these remote places, and the kids there knew the singers and the actors that came out of LA. And I just thought like, that's so cool. There's such a really special thing about impacting people positively through those things. So I thought maybe that's what I would do. And so I was working with another nonprofit, helping with production of shows. So like fashion shows or concert things, I don't know, all kinds of random events, and just like kept showing up. I started as a volunteer and then eventually ended up being a backstage director of shows. So then I was doing that for a long time. And that was in LA and New York. And then all of that was still through nonprofit work. So not getting paid much at all, if anything, but doing really meaningful jobs that involved a lot of travel and a lot of fun. I really, really loved all of that. And yeah. And then, and a lot of like mentoring and encouraging. So through this nonprofit, had the opportunity to start something that was called Beauty Arise, which was a group of friends and I teaching girls and women around the world on beauty, identity, and value. And I just love the like mentoring style and like public speaking and stuff. It was a lot of like really random things all layered on each other. And then at the same time, Sean had started something called Calling All Skaters. Again, it was another Christian-based thing where they're teaching people how to use skateboarding to positively impact the world. So it was in all these different locations in China, in Barcelona, in South America, LA, San Francisco. They're running these schools for skaters and then sending skaters to different parts of the world to work with other skateboarding organizations.
Wow.
So like I said, many things all kind of swirling around. And the reason why that matters even more in my motherhood experience is that many of those things came to a standstill for me once I became a mom. And I kind of had this idea of motherhood that would be like, I'm just going to add my kid to everything I'm already doing. And it's going to be pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And it's going to like, I'm not going to need much of any of the stuff people say they need for kids. I'm just going to grab a kid and take them around, you know?
Yep.
And then, you know, because you're a mom, it just doesn't go like that, even for the most ambitious mom. And I traveled a lot with Eloise once she was born. And even still, I was like, whoa, my life is so not what it once was. And I can't keep living like that. I need to find my new identity in this. And so it took a lot of like surrendering what I thought was going to be, surrendering who I was before, and being okay with having no clue what I was doing and like what I was going to become.
Yeah.
Also one of the jobs that I was working that I loved a lot came to an end in kind of a sad way, without going into a lot of detail. It just wasn't what I expected, the ending of it. And so that happened while I was pregnant. The like final, like, we're no longer going to have you working with us, was weeks before she arrived. And then kind of the aftermath. Yeah. The aftermath of that was into her early months of life. So I think I was also grieving something that I wasn't expecting. And all of that, I haven't like talked openly about that, but I think all of that contributed to my real like flip when I had it. Yes, exactly. To have a daughter and be like, whoa, what am I like? How do I do this? And will it get better? And you kind of hear that motherhood is gonna, well, now, okay, I will say this. Now I think because of people like you and others like us who are willing to open up about some of the challenges, now there's much more available about that. But honestly, I looked hard. I was reading blogs. I was looking at any video, and I just couldn't find people who were talking as openly about how like motherhood doesn't necessarily bring on this natural joy that you thought it might. Like the baby bliss, like you hold the baby and automatically feel high. That didn't happen for me right away. And I would look up, like, is something wrong with me? Does that mean I'm depressed? Like, but actually that's very common. I just didn't know. And so anyway, so all of that to say, like, my first kid, it was hard. It was great in a lot of ways and hard in so many ways I didn't expect.
And a couple of things. So I was just talking to somebody else on a podcast about that exactly. Like, I feel like the authentic message is kind of new and is necessary. And people, like, for example, postpartum bodies. The first time that I saw that you were still going to have your bump after pushing out your baby, I was like, what? Right. And now it's like common knowledge. Like, if you
totally. Oh, people love the photos too. Yeah. Like, it's clickbait to be able to see a photo like that, because everybody knows. But I didn't know either. That's true.
Yeah. And so now it's like you, and I think if you're expecting, like I did, I mean, not even before I was pregnant, I was like, oh yeah, you have the baby and then your stomach goes not flat, but you don't have a bump. Well, so then once I started realizing that, then your expectation is that. So then postpartum, when you still have a bump, you're like, oh, this is like everyone else. Done. Yeah. And so I think that authenticity piece is like so crucial and so needed and happening, which I think is really awesome. Also, my story is so similar in that I was traveling full time. I was like, nobody depended on me. Nobody relied on me. I was gone. I was like, I felt, oh, I want to help the refugees or the Syrian refugees. Okay, I'm going to go do that. And I just like left for Greece, or like, I want to go to Thailand. Boom. I'm going to go to Arizona this weekend. Done. And just like total freedom, total, I don't know. I didn't have bills because I was not lit. I was like essentially homeless because I was just like going from place to place, and it was thrilling, and it was exactly how I wanted my life, and I was loving it. And then two things, COVID and a baby. And I was the same way. I was like, barnacle baby. She's just going to, it's going to be her norm. She's going to go. Yeah, no problem. Not exactly.
Huge problem. Yeah.
Huge.
No, we got back from Barcelona. We spent 3 months of my pregnancy in Barcelona. We flew back to LA and didn't know where we were going to live yet because we had been living everywhere. We'd been staying at churches, staying in the most random places.
Yeah.
And it was, we flew back the last possible day the doctor would let me fly, which was 1 month before my due date. And then she was born just a couple weeks later. And I was like, oh yeah, this is so fun. Like, this will all work out. We didn't know where we were going to live.
Fine.
I mean, I definitely had worry too. It's funny how life can be such a paradox of like, I'm this and I'm this, but I mostly was like, you will be fine. At one point we didn't know where we were going to live. And I was like, Sean, we could live with all the skaters. All these skaters were living together. There were like 25 high school age skaters that we were working with. And they were staying in the upper level of this church, this one in the city that was like, yeah, you guys can stay here. I was like, oh, we'll stay there with the new baby. Yeah. That'll be great. And even Sean, who's like way more laid back than me, was like, I have a feeling, like, I don't know exactly why that won't work. Nothing comes to mind as to why that won't work. But I think I should look for other places to live.
Yeah. So what did you end up finding?
So we ended up moving in with my sister and her husband, and they didn't have a kid yet. And they were going to be moving out of this little place. It's actually the place that we live now still, which we didn't expect that was going to go. So there's a woman, a really amazing, generous woman who owns a home, and she rents out the bottom level, kind of like an apartment basically. Yeah. And so my sister and her husband were renting out that bottom level. So we just joined them, which that's kind of a dream. I love being with her. And
me too. I lived with my sister, and Seth was like, all right, we're having a baby. We got to get our own place. And I was like, do we?
You're like, or we could stay.
Forever.
Yeah, we loved it. It was really fun. But my sister married Sean's friend. He's our friend. He's all of our friends, but like, they're really close. So that was great. Very convenient. Highly recommend.
Yeah. No.
So we all were together for a time, but they already knew they were moving. And so it was just a temporary piece.
Yeah.
And then we were there for the first year and then moved to Spain after that. But I mean, that was nice. And then we got to move back into that same house after we got back. So that's our home.
Yeah. How long were you in Spain for?
We were in Spain for 2 years. We had a 2-year visa. So that was max. And I love Barcelona and definitely hope we can do it again. But to be honest, which it's not like it's a secret, people could go find videos of this. The transition into motherhood was already pretty like rocked me. And then moving to a new country, and I didn't speak Spanish yet. And I'm not amazing at, I mean, I'm much better now, but I'm not great at like recognizing my needs and asking for help ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so I got really depressed the first year that we were there, and then ended up, I'm just going to speed through this part of the story, but people, if they want like a longer version, I've made videos about this, but I got very depressed to the point of being suicidal, and asked for help from some family, ended up going to a mental hospital for 10 days, an outpatient program when we were home for the holidays. So we ended up just prolonging our return to Spain and doing another month in the States so I could do this program and then get some medication and some counseling and figure out what we might need. And in that, it was very helpful because what we realized is not only did I need some processing, like some space to process all the life change, but more than that, we also needed some additional help with Eloise so that I could start building a social life in Spain and like really have time to learn the language, because Sean was living quite a high in Spain, and Barcelona's #1 skateboarding city in the world, like incredibly connected for skateboarders, but specifically for Sean. So his very best people were there.
Yeah.
And I was like, everything's great. Like, we'll make this work. This will be great.
Yeah.
But inside I'm like getting lower and lower. And like, I don't know why I don't feel okay. Like, I'm sure if I just, keep going, it'll get better. And what I needed was more direct. Like, I needed a counselor. I needed some hours away from Eloise, and Spanish. I needed to speak so that, because I'm a people person in the same way you're describing yourself, like needing to talk to people and loving the podcast idea. Then you can have a conversation. For me, I was like going out on the street and just craving like talking to anybody.
Yeah.
But my Spanish wasn't at the level where I felt confident to do that. So anyway, my second year in Spain was amazing. And I think that was really precious because then it felt really redemptive and I got to leave on a high and leave
Oh,
like, oh, I'm
good.
sad I'm leaving versus leaving like, oh, that
Thank
was
God.
hard and I wish it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, lots of transitions all at once, which were really hard, but then ended up being awesome. And I'm
Well,
thankful.
so I've seen some of those videos, so I know what you're talking
Okay.
about because I
Mhm.
watch a lot of your videos. But also so difficult when your partner is like
Yeah.
thriving and you're like,
Yeah,
I really want to be happy for you. And I am happy for you. I'm
totally.
so happy,
Totally.
but I'm not. And
Yeah.
because that's how I feel sometimes. Like Seth's job he's doing super well. He's like, oh, I'm going to this training and I'm getting into this and getting into this. And I'm like, I am so happy for you.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm starting a podcast. Like, it's just like, you're
Look
like,
at my headphones.
oh yeah. Did you see my new headphones I got on Amazon? He's like, oh, are those Beats? I was like, no, they're the Amazon recommended $30 ones. Okay. Like, yes. But it's so difficult because you're going through this transition and it is world rocking for you. And your partner doesn't have boobs that lactate. So like, it's harder because it's like,
no, totally. And for me, I was like, I don't even want to say my low because I don't want to take away from your high, which looking back, that was kind of dumb. Some of that, like, I really should have been much more open because it doesn't mean by saying it, he needs to fix it. It's more just like, I should have been open so that together as our team that we are, we could be like, okay, what help do we need?
Right.
But instead it was just sort of like, I don't know what to do and everything will be fine. We'll just keep going and hopefully it'll get better.
Yeah. I think that's typical of new moms though, because we need so much help. And first of all, we're kind of brain dead in the beginning because we need to just do nothing else except for take care of this baby, like the mom brain.
Sure. Yeah.
So I couldn't even like process what I needed, but I knew that I wasn't doing okay. And I was just like, I don't know. And then Seth would be like, oh, should we get a meal plan so that food can come to the house? And I was like, oh, that would be wonderful. Like such a simple solution that you just can't come up with on your own, or you just don't know how to ask for the help. And I definitely relate to that. So then you waited a bit for the second babe.
Yeah. Well, we're not that careful. Now we're very careful. We weren't that careful after a while because we were like, okay, because when I first had Eloise, I thought, okay, I'm already in baby mode. Maybe it's just smartest to like bang out the kids that we want. And then you're done, even though it's a whirlwind. It's like jumping into a pool and you don't know how to swim. I was sort of like, maybe there's benefit to that because we're young. We have all the baby stuff out. And might as well. And I loved Eloise. Like as much as it was hard for me, there was so much about her that I was like, this is amazing. This is so like, I know I won't get to the end of my life and regret having you as hard as this is. This has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. And that's part of the hardest part is you're like, this is so hard, but I wouldn't change it. And you're like, how can I get better if I'm not going to change anything? Like how
totally. I know.
Cause obviously you love your baby and you want you're happy, but you're also unhappy sometimes. And you're like, how can I feel both things and not want any change, but want things to be better? It's difficult.
Yes, totally. So we felt that for sure. I thought it might be wise not to try and get pregnant before we moved to Spain, because in the move, it would have been a lot. And then also the first year I was so depressed that I'm really thankful looking back, I didn't get pregnant. We weren't trying, but like I said, we weren't that careful. So it definitely could have happened. And then once we were trying, it would have been our second year in Spain. We're like, okay, we could probably do this. I didn't get pregnant in the certain times when we thought maybe I would. So then it never got to the point of being like super sad about it. I didn't let myself go there. I think maybe because I wasn't convinced of having another one yet. I was more like nervous.
We'll see what happens. We'll roll the dice here.
Yeah. So then I ended up getting pregnant when I wasn't expecting it, which was right as we were moving back from Spain. Just like a few weeks before, I think, is when I took the pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant. And I was like, oh, well, how nice. also I was pretty panicked, and I was pretty much like not down with moving while being pregnant. I was like, oh, of course, like here we are. Oh, and I was flying back to the States with just me and Eloise, because we had already figured out that Sean was going to be flying separately. So I was like, oh, awesome. Pregnant.
Good.
Flying alone with a kid, a toddler. Awesome. So yeah, there were elements to that I was like, but overall cool. And then their age gap is 4 years and 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So that's the first gap. And then the second gap feels like just a breath, but I think it's 15 months. So yeah. So that was a surprise, the third.
But were you planning on trying for a third eventually? No plans.
Sean said at some point that 3 would be cool, but he's also said like 5 would be cool. And I think that was before we had any. So I think we were like, maybe we, at that point we had 2, they were 4 years apart. I thought it was way easier having the second than the first, but it was still hard. I mean, having a baby is just still a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And, but I found out I was pregnant with Jules right as LA was shutting down. Like, I found out I was pregnant with Jules, I think a week or so before LA shut down, and LA shut down before many other places. So that was when we found out Eloise wasn't going to be going to preschool anymore. She's going to be home with us. And I already have Wilson in my arms.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, this won't be good. I cried. I was not happy. And I wished I was. That was so annoying. I was like, oh my gosh, my baby deserves for me to be happy, because I know even if I hate this, I'm going to absolutely love her.
Right.
But
it's all going to work out. But the fears sometimes and the anxiety like is worse than what actually comes. Because you just don't know what to expect. But I feel like a lot of people have said like babies can be totally different. Like your first baby is way different than your second. Did you find that?
Definitely.
See, that's mind blowing to me. I'm like, oh, just gonna have another Aaliyah. This is gonna be so easy, or not easy, but this is just gonna be the same.
Yeah, you know what to expect. No, my kids are so different from each other, and it's so fun and definitely challenging in certain ways.
Yeah,
for sure. Like Eloise is she's a very tender, very sensitive. Like, she, as a baby, I think almost never laughed. She smiled, but she's like, it was like the straight, I'm sure I'm funny. I was like, we are funny. Your parents are funny. What is going on? So that was a lesson in humility for 12 months. And then she laughed. And so that was a good thing. Breakthrough there. Yeah. No, but then like my daughter Jules, the third one, I think she came out laughing. She's nonstop giggles and like so funny. She's so laid back. She was the hardest one as far as like medically. Feeding her was the hardest. She had the most health issues, most reflux, like definitely most challenging as far as the early months went.
Yeah.
But then once she got past some of the health things that we needed to see happen, she's the most laid back, like easiest going. She will sit and play by herself. She'll sit and eat the entire day and laugh and eat and not like
what?
She's such a sweetheart. You would, if you hung out with her, you'd be like, oh, I'll have a third kid. I might skip a second kid, but I'll go to 3. That'll be fine. Wilson is my son. He's the middle one. He is a joy and so funny and like loud and energy. But as a baby, I think all he wanted to be able to do was talk and run. And so he was so frustrated the whole, like all the way until he finally started being able to get his words out and like move at the pace that his body is feeling like going. Yeah. He was a grouch. He would laugh sometimes. He's so cute, but like super clingy to mom. Really, I mean, adorable little guy. I was crazy about him. But as far as like ease of having a baby goes, he was just real moody, real grumpy. Like my friends were like, I don't know how you ended up with somebody that was just so he was emotional. But now he's like all fun and he's always saying, just kidding. And I'm like, oh, you just need to be able to tell jokes. Right. And now you're fine.
I feel you. Don't go tell Eloise a joke.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. And now Eloise is really funny and talkative and like you know, as my one serious baby, she's now just like silly and fun and sweet. So anyway, but yeah, but I will say the 4-year gap, a benefit of that, not that anyone needs to like time out when they have kids,
but people do. I mean, people think about it when the perfect time to have a kid.
Right. There's pros and cons to both though,
Always.
because if you space them out like I did, a nice thing is Eloise totally understood. Like I was talking about my pregnancy the whole time and she was so stoked. And then when I'm leaving for the hospital, she's really excited and she knows I'm coming home with a baby. And then like when I have the baby, there were definitely moments of him crying and then her crying because she's like, make him stop. Or she has headphones as big as yours and she would just put them on and not plug them into anything. Just because he was crying. I should find a video of that. It's so funny.
My gosh.
And she would just put them on. But so like, she's old enough to recognize like he, you know, this is a lot. And she could go to the bathroom by herself and I don't need to wipe and, you know.
Yeah.
But then Wilson, he had no idea she was coming. He was so confused, so upset. He couldn't even walk yet by the time she got home. So I have 2 babies to hold. And so the challenge there was obvious, but then now like, I have all the baby stuff I need because I just had him. So it was a very easy transition for that. And then now they're like little buddies and I can see already that they're playing together and it's going to get even more fun with them being able to all play. So I think that's cool. I'm getting through this like really chaotic time kind of quickly. It feels like now it's going fast.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't know. There's got to be pros and cons to all of it.
Oh, totally. And I constantly am asking my friends, I'm like, okay, so they're 2 years apart. Is that good? Okay? They're 2.5. Did you like that? Oh, 3. And all of them have pros and cons, all of it. It's, and a lot of people say it depends on your baby. Like they'll be like, my first one was super chill. The second one was not, or vice versa. And that made a difference. And yeah, I think it's just, roll the dice, and see what happens.
Go for it.
Yeah,
exactly. You're going to be happy in it. It's going to be hard and you're going to be happy in all of it.
Exactly.
I will say this, my really good friend for a time, it's funny how that works. You can be really good friends and then not talk too much, but basically for a time I lived next to this girl who's amazing. And she had 2 kids. They're either as close together as my 2 youngest or maybe even closer. And I watched her live because we worked for the same, nonprofit and we lived right next to each other. So I saw her life. And she very openly was like, Jessica, I'm living the worst 2 years of my whole life. I've never lived anything as hard as I am right now. And because I saw that, and like, she's a sweet girl, loves her kids. And now she's so happy they're past that stage. And she's like, I wouldn't want it any other way. Yeah. But because I was able to see that with that perspective, like, okay, this is really hard. That helped me to know having more kids might be super hard for a time. So then I felt like my perspective was a little bit better versus when I had Eloise and I'm thinking it's going to be amazing.
Come with
you
me.
know, it's going to be so natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something. So sometimes having them close together might literally be the hardest thing you've done, but that's temporary. And if you have the context of like, okay, we're going to make it through this really precious and really hard time, then on the other side of it is a lot of fun that's coming.
Totally.
So I don't know. That's helpful.
My sister and I are 16 months apart and it's the greatest thing ever. Like I love it. And so when Seth and I had Aaliyah, we were like, let's go for Irish twins. Like that's 2 under 1. Like we're like, that will be so much fun.
My friend did that twice.
Oh my
3. God. Yeah. All 3 are less than a year. Yeah.
Somebody was looking out for me because that did not happen for us. And I was just, I remember talking to Seth being like, okay, so when we were always just like, I was exclusively breastfeeding because Aaliyah never took a bottle ever.
Yeah.
So
same with Eloise.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, next baby, they will be taking a bottle.
That's what I did. I was like out the gate, like, welcome to the world.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But I just remember because like I said, we were always like, oh, we'll see when it happens. But because I was exclusively breastfeeding, I like had to stop night weaning at 13 months to get my period back. It was not coming. So finally, so I think we're trying the whole time because you never know, like, you ovulate before you get your period. Maybe you could be pregnant the whole time. Who knows? And Seth was like, at one point, he was like, maybe we should just wait a little while. Like, you seem to be really struggling. And in my head, I'm like, Shayla, we have to get it together because if you want a baby right now, you've got to convince him that you're fine.
That sounds really normal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just do it. Just do it. And my body was like, nah. Thankfully. So I distinctly, we were on a walk and he was just like, I don't think that's, but my mom so me and my sister are 16 months apart, like I said, and she was like 3 years. For 3 years, I just cried. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I want that. And she said that she would put us like in the crib in a safe space and just go sit on the porch and cry. And so it was kind of nice, honestly, to have that honest perspective. Cause I was like, oh, okay. So it can be hard, but now it's the greatest. My sister and I, like I said, we're just like, we still send each other like Zillow houses of like, okay, if we pool our money, we could get this and live in a compound. This would be great.
Oh yeah. My sister and I do that too. We're always like, okay, so where should we move that we can live together in the same house? Yeah. My sister and I are 2.5 years apart. And I feel like that gap might be good. I don't know. I don't have a 2.5 year gap, but I just think like based on my experience, something slightly bigger than what I did with the second time around, but slightly shorter than the first time around, maybe could be like a spot. I don't know.
But it sounds like it's all working out. Like because I've talked to people who are 16 months apart and they're like, oh, that's the worst. Me and my brother don't even talk. And I'm like, that's the best for me and my sister. So I think it depends on.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So would you say that it sounds like obviously 1 to 2 was probably the easiest because of the age gap?
Because of the age gap and because I understood the context for things. Like first time around, hard times feel so long. Like you're in a sleep regression and you're like, oh my gosh, will this ever end?
Never.
And then you get over one and then like soon after you have another one and you're like, wait, I thought we just did this. And then some teething happens and it all feels like the longest night of your whole life and they just keep happening. And
yes,
but when it was my second time, by then Eloise is 4, so not only is she helpful and understanding, beyond that I now have seen for 4 years that everything is temporary, that every hard stage that she went through is already past, and now I'm on the 4-year-old mark of whatever's hard and whatever's good. And that helped me so much. And really, that has helped me a lot with the third one, even though my transition to 3 was really bumpy. Everything is temporary, that piece that's like loud in my head because I've seen it already with Eloise, because she's now in 1st grade and I'm looking like, wait, but I remember holding you the same way I hold Jules. And already you're a 1st grader, which means I'm going to blink and you'll all be in school and this is all going to be behind me, you know? So I think that helps a lot. Having your first baby and going through all of that automatically is going to set you up for some of those feelings whenever you have your next ones.
Well, and I think, because for me, I'm like, okay, 2 should be the transition, at least for me, I'm hoping 2 will be a little bit simpler because we're already in this, like you said, we're already in this family baby mode. We need to check in with each other if we can go do things. Like Seth's like, hey, golfing, and I'm like, oh, fine. Where before you'd be like, I'm going golfing, see you later. And you're in this like mode of not a lot of sleep and just
your whole pace has already changed. You're already going slow,
and you've accepted all the changes, and you're in family mode, and you've already made a lot of the decisions. So like all the things that you're learning, because you're like, what's a 4-month sleep regression? What's the what am I going to do for, and just like the thousands of decisions that come with becoming a new parent, which really are only hundreds, because as a new parent, you just think that everything is catastrophic and that you're going to ruin your baby. And then the second kid, you're like, I would imagine you're like, oh, my first baby's not ruined. I made some mistakes that I will change with the second. And that's just that.
And then I'll make new mistakes with the second and be like, oh, well, I did that first. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The weird thing is how fast you forget. Maybe it's because the mom brain, like your brain melts away again. But there were lots of things that even with this now third baby, which I just went through all this stuff with Wilson.
Yeah.
I was Googling all kinds of things just not that long ago for Wilson. And then I'm with Jules and I'm like, I don't know how to feed you solids.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Meanwhile, I'm doing it,
Yeah,
but so there's some stuff I'm like, oh, well, I guess with every kid, I'm going to feel some sort of like, I'm not really sure. Let me, thank goodness I can ask someone or look it up. But yeah, definitely it's easier. And the decision-making stuff is easier. Weirdly, stuff changes between kids, like even medical advice. When Eloise was born, they didn't want her to have strawberries for the first year. And then with Wilson, I'm like at the doctor, I was like, so I haven't been giving him strawberries. And they're like, oh, you can give strawberries. I'm like, oh no, what else? Like, what's changed? I don't know.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. So that's weird. I wasn't expecting that the advice changes, but I guess that's kind of life. I don't know. I just thought things are clear and then you just follow the rules.
Yeah.
But it's not like that.
Just give me the rules and I'll stick to them forever. Yeah.
Right.
What was the why not strawberries initially?
I don't remember. I feel like it had something to do with an allergy. Like they were concerned kids would have allergies. Even like the peanut thing. Like I knew you couldn't give like any sort of peanut stuff with Eloise, but then now the doctor said something about recommending like something with peanut dust in it because then maybe that could help. And I was like, gosh, this is confusing. And like the risk, if your kid has an allergy, that sucks. I don't know. All that's scary.
Yeah, but that's what my doctor told me. They're like, well, we used to recommend not giving peanuts, but then we found that all those kids had, or more kids had peanut allergies because they didn't get exposed to it.
Right.
Now you expose them to it, and I don't know.
I'm welcome to the challenges of every single thing. Like, where should my baby sleep? I don't know. If you do it this way, they could die. If you do it that way, they could die. If you do it this way, they could die. Good luck. Don't do any of those. But pick one.
Yeah.
It's so stressful.
Just don't let them sleep, actually. Then they'll.
They or let them sleep whenever they want. Yeah. That's another thing. Some moms, I only let them sleep whenever they want. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do any of this. It's so hard.
Okay. So then you went to therapy and you had to pull in social elements. Do you feel like that's still kind of your sanity? Like now you have 3. So even though we've talked about how it's gotten easier and that you've become basically a more seasoned mom, you're not just a mother. And so like what things do you do that kind of help you find yourself, find Jess?
Yeah. Good question. This is so specific. Like if I'm going to talk about this, what people should know is that it's got to be what's specific to the mom. Because like, for example, if we gathered a room full of moms and I told them, hey, you guys, all of you have to start podcasts like Shayla's doing, there is going to be a majority of them who are like, no, I would never, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then to give that to you and be like, hey, you totally have permission to do this. For you, that's like a light in your soul. Like, oh my gosh, I can talk to people and see them and I don't have to film to a camera and they don't see me back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, we don't interact. So all that to say, like what I have found over the course of these years of being a mom is that it's really life-giving for me to have something I'm working towards outside of motherhood. So for me right now, it's growing my YouTube channel and not even growth of it necessarily, more like making sure that I'm adding value to my viewers' lives, because I could do everything I want to grow a channel, but I could just be making a bunch of noise and not actually adding like distinct value to their life. So doing that, thinking like, how can I help people in a real impactful way? With my business, growing my business so where it can actually be something that provides for our family. Oh yeah, we have a business.
Yeah, tell us.
You were the first.
Yeah.
So we started Very Good Mothers Club, which is an online business, and it has a vision of building community alongside of it, but basically selling products to growing families that will add value to their life and will encourage the mothers and fathers who receive them, and in the family members that receive them, and all of that was an overflow of having a YouTube channel where I really care about the people watching and being able to see like, what are their needs? How can I meet them? And how can I provide for myself? Because our family needs to be provided for.
Right. Yeah.
That's just how it goes. And so that's something that was really like life-giving for me, is finding a way to build something outside of what I'm building within this family story of being a mom and raising my kids. And obviously, I think you're the same. Like, friendships are really important to me, and having a time to invest in my sister, that's really important to me.
Yeah.
And that relationship, along with my husband, and just whoever your core people are. For me, I have certain people that I'm like, I've got to find ways to keep these relationships alive within this season that I'm in, because it keeps me alive. Like,
Definitely.
it helps me to know who I am. And also because motherhood is, especially early motherhood, maybe always, is so much of working, but not necessarily seeing like an end result, a measurable something. But in business or even in YouTube, there's more that you can measure to be like, okay, this was cool. This went well.
Yeah.
And with motherhood, there's like a lot of good. There's moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going so well. And I can really see it,
I did it.
I can really see that, that something is happening here. That's an overflow of me investing in these kids. But a lot of it is not that, especially early motherhood, when you have a little baby and you're loving them like crazy and you're spending day and night and all energy on this little one. There are very few moments when you look at it and are like, okay, wow, this is really paying off. There's no like close. You keep going. So for me, having work outside of raising my kids, for Sean, he's so supportive of that. So he is really on board with like finding ways for me to be out of the house, working away from all the kids, so that I can fully focus on that and then fully focus on the kids.
Right.
I know there are moms who would hate the idea of leaving their kids to go work. And that is where it needs to be a personal decision based on like what your passions are, what your gifts are, and what your literal needs are, because you might need to go work for a time in order to provide for you guys. But that could be a temporary thing until you get to the thing that you really want. So anyway, for me, keeping relationships alive and then building something outside of motherhood along with raising my kids.
And I like the Very Good Mothers Club. You have like specific clothing, but you also sell products that are not Very Good Mothers Club products. I feel like that's kind of the best way, because what everyone on YouTube does is recommends their favorite things, right? And it's like, oh, go use this link or whatever. And you're just like, yo, I put them all in one spot for you. Like, these are all my favorite things. These are all the things. I bought a finger toothbrush from you.
Oh yeah, thank you.
She loves it. She loves brushing.
My kids do too.
It's insane. I was like, okay, well, this is handy. Like, great. And so it's kind of, I feel like it's I love what you did with it, because it was just like, you know what? Because I feel like this comes from all the way from the beginning, from mentoring people to like going out and doing good work and just constantly bringing value to people. You're still doing it. And you're doing it again, or you're still doing it or whatever. And I think that's really cool.
In its own way this time. Thank you. I think that's awesome. I love that. Thanks. That's so cool.
Well, and I had to do the same thing for myself. I had to figure out my needs, kind of like what you said. You have to figure out what you need. And mine was definitely just people again. Like, I just needed to connect with people. That's why this podcast happened. But even like in my third trimester, I got a job. I think I say this in every single one of my podcasts because I think it's so telling, but like, I got a job at Lululemon in my third trimester at the mall. And I was like, they're like, okay, well, this is what the
your
pay
personality, huh?
I'm like, I don't care how much you're paying me. That's a great bonus, but I really am just excited to hang out with people. And like, Lululemon's a great company where they're all, I'm going to fall off my chair. They're all like about personal growth and all these like really things that I'm into. And so I would get off an 8-hour shift and I would call Seth and he's like, how was it? And I was like, great. It was so good. And I am pregnant. I'm so pregnant, but I was just loving it. So when I transitioned from full-time traveler to essentially full-time mom who couldn't travel with COVID,
yeah,
it was an identity crisis of just like, well, I'm a mom now. Like that's it. And not that that's a huge role, but I needed something else. And so it was a lot of like, okay, why did I travel? I traveled because I liked new things. I traveled because I got to learn. I traveled because I got to connect with new people all the time. So I started reading and I started taking courses and I started like trying to fill those gaps with the core of what I needed from travel, even if I couldn't hop on a plane. And so I think that introspection is like huge. Like, what are the things that feed you that you can now pull into motherhood to just keep that flame alive in your soul, essentially?
Totally. Yeah. Something too that I remember is I really wanted to find that. Like it's when I had Eloise, I remember kind of early being like, I'm sure I can find myself within this role, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. It took me a really long time. I would even like sit and journal and be like, okay, who am I? Like, what do I love? What are the things that I loved doing before that I'm still capable of within this new way of doing life? And it was so hard to figure that out. I started my YouTube channel while I was pregnant. So I knew that like that was something I could do that would just keep me communicating with people and stuff. But it took a while. And I think now looking back, it's okay if it takes a while. I think it's really normal. Like for some of us, depending on our life circumstances. Oh shoot. Let's see. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. It's like glitched. It might be easier to find that part of us. Maybe if we have like really great people around us or really great siblings or whoever who can help like remind us. But then sometimes it just takes a while and eventually it all makes sense. But I'm thinking of like moms who might hear us and be like, oh, I wish that I could do like what Shayla did, like know that about myself while pregnant and then transition that in. But I imagine when you were inside of that feeling, it didn't happen that black and white, like, oh, here's what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking like for them, we want them to hear like, it's okay if it takes a while, like pick up a book. Does it feel fun to read? No. Okay. Put that book back down and go for a walk. Is that fun? No. Okay. Stop walking. You know what I mean? Like you
or
just
like
kind of
get time away from your kid. Does that feel good? Spend more time.
Sure.
Yeah. Cause I think there's a lot of guilt too with not being with your kid. And I found that like, if I can give 100% to my work, I can give 100% to my kid instead of 50-50 all the time. Hey, just watch this show real quick while I send an email. Like that feels gross on all accounts. Do I do it sometimes because I have to? Of course. But is it better to be like, okay, this is my work time, bubbled out, and now I can spend undivided with you? It's way better.
I'm the same. I prefer that.
But there's also moms that are listening going, what are you guys talking about? I found myself in motherhood. I find joy in it every day. And I think that's fantastic. I think.
Oh, I was so those moms.
Right.
I honestly, what? You had a baby and you found yourself? I can't find me anywhere. But now, cool. It just all takes all a while.
Yeah. And everybody's experience is so different, but I think that's why it's important to hear all those different experiences and I think it's hard sometimes to share ours just because, like I said, it sometimes comes off like negative or complaining, but I think it's just like a leveling and a connecting of just like, it's okay. It's okay if you feel this way. You've got a 6-year-old, things will get better. Things will get hard again. If you have another one, they might not, who knows? And it's just, everyone's experience, I think, is so unique and just honoring all of it.
Speaks to that. Somebody wrote me recently and was like, you always say it will get better, but I have older kids and it gets harder. And I think like that might be true. Like you and I might end up experiencing seasons of motherhood later that we're like, oh my gosh, this is way harder than the big. But I think, and I guess what I hope will be easier is that we will already have a sense of identity that grounds us in the midst of those things. Because I think when we first have our babies, that's what gets flipped all around, in addition to everything that's hard about taking care of a new baby.
Yeah.
But then when they're if we're facing some sort of like teenager issues, which I frequently get messages about, which I don't doubt will be challenging.
Yeah.
My hope would be that by then, we have something inside of us that's more rooted than we did first had our little baby. And that part maybe is what gets easier, even if the raising of the kids itself is hard.
Yeah. I've gotten the same things like, oh, it gets harder in different ways. And I think, I mean, that's even true now. Breastfeeding was insane. Feeding a child 3 meals a day and cleaning up after, that's also insane. So like, that's the only transition that I understand, but I think you're right. Like it is going to get hard and different in different ways. And we can only speak to what we know. And I think that's what we do on our YouTube channel is like, look, this might not be your story. This is just mine. I'm just sharing it. Take it or leave it. But
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. So, okay. So how people can find you Instagram, Jess Hover.
Jess _ Hover.
Okay. They can Very Good Mothers Club.
verygoodmothersclub.com. And my YouTube channel, my name, Jessica Hover.
Love it.
And that's that.
That's
And I gave out my address one time. So for those people who saw that, they can come to my front door.
What?
Twice. First, I accidentally had my address on every order that we were shipping out for Very Good Mothers Club because I didn't realize. But then, like, thankfully, the initial buyers of of our stuff are like my people, so like they can have it. But and then another time, I guess I had it in a video and I didn't know. It was like behind my head. And someone wrote me like, hey, just look up your house on Google Maps. I know exactly where it is. And so I just wanted to let you know that it's known where it is. And I was like, oh, great.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's not good.
It's also usually at the bottom of emails. So if you send out emails.
Oh yeah. We did that one time with yeah, so like a handful of people around the world know exactly where
it's fine. You probably don't even live there anymore, except for you said that you do.
Yeah, we have a security system and cameras though, so at least we'll know who comes.
We also have a pit bull. So yeah.
And like a lot of police all around.
It's just so vicious. Yeah. A lot of police. They actually just circle my house because I asked them to.
They kind of do though, because I think our next door neighbors, if you're listening, sorry, but I think they do a different kind of business that brings the police a lot.
Well, they probably make more money than you do.
Oh, thank you. I believe. I do believe.
All right. Well, on that note,
so if Very Good Mothers Club fails, then I'll be hired by them. So if you don't see me online,
I'm gonna go next door and ask if they have got. Do you have an open position?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at sales. Yeah, so that's my future if this doesn't work out.
Well, good to know. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on. I am stoked to get to know you more and chat all the things. And thanks for being honest about all of it and just sharing your story.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for what you do on the internet. If only I had you. If only when I Googled 6 years ago what I was Googling, if you would have popped up, I would have had a much different story. So I'm really thankful.
Well, that means that you were a pioneer.
Oh, see? And that's what I try to be.
Wowza. Pioneer Jess.
Yep.
Amazing. I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Let me know when you have your next baby. Let me in the internet now. We'll be very excited.
We'll do. And then we'll process that out loud all over the internet. Yeah,
I'll be ready. I'll have all the questions for you this time.
Perfect. All right. Bye.